So this topic 4.2 will discuss the mole concept, and first, before explaining the mole concept, we will discuss how to write a chemical equation. And to write a chemical equation, you should be able to identify the elements as metal and non-metal. So on the staircase, when we draw between boron and aluminum, elements on the left hand side all are metals, where elements on the right hand side are non-metals. And hydrogen is a non-metal as well. So how to write a chemical equation using metals and non-metals? So writing a chemical equation, the first type in which the two elements are reacting with each other. So when element react with another element, this will result in a formation of compound. That is the first type of a chemical equation. And if an element is a metal, it will be an atom. And if we have element a non-metal, then it will be a molecule, two atoms together, which result in a formation of a compound. So example, if I say sodium plus chlorine. So if sodium is reacting with chlorine, when element react with another element, what it result? It result in a formation of compound. So this will result in a formation of a compound known as sodium chloride. So first part of the equation is to complete the equation, and then the second part is balancing the equation. Now to complete the equation, we have sodium element. And what is sodium? When we check the periodic table, when you check the position of sodium, sodium is Na. So it is a metal or a non-metal? Sodium. It is on the left hand side of the periodic table. Is it a metal or a non-metal? So sodium is metal. And when we check chlorine, which is on the right hand side of a periodic table, it will be a non-metal. So when sodium is reacting with chlorine, it forms sodium chloride. Sodium is a metal, so it will be Na atom. Chlorine is a non-metal. The symbol for chlorine is Cl, but because it's a non-metal, so non-metal element always exists as molecule except for group 8. Group 8 does not exist as molecule other than group 8, all exists as molecule. So sodium plus chlorine, and this result in a formation of a compound sodium chloride. And how to write a formula of a compound? So to write a formula of a compound, what we have to do, we don't have to bother about how many sodium atoms are there and how many chlorine. We have to use the periodic table. So whenever you're writing a formula, you don't have to bother how many chlorine atoms are there, how many sodium atoms are there. To write a formula of a compound, you have to use the periodic table. So how you will use the periodic table? The group numbers are actually the charges, representing the charges. For group 1, it is +1, group 2 is +2, group 3 is +3, group 4 is -4, group 5 is -3, group 6 is -2, group 7 is -1, and group 8 is 0. So we want to write a formula of a compound which is a combination of sodium and chlorine. So sodium is group 1, so the valency, the charge will be +1. Chlorine is group 7, so the valency or the charge will be -1. And then what we do, we simplify this valency and cross multiply. So this 1 is written with chlorine, it will come with sodium, and 1 of sodium will come with chlorine, cross multiply. So it will be Na1 and Cl1. So formula of the sodium chloride will be NaCl. So when we write the formula here, the formula, like student think that it is written Na2 and Cl2, so they will write NaCl2. That's wrong. Because when you work out the formula of sodium chloride, sodium is group 1, so that is +1. Chlorine is group 7, that is -1. So when we cross multiply the valency, the formula of the sodium chloride should be NaCl. So first thing is done, in which we complete the equation. Is it clear till now? Anyone having a doubt? The first part, what we did, we completed the equation. What about this too? Because this chlorine, I told this chlorine is a non-metal. So when element, you just check if the element is a non-metal, then it will be a molecule. When element is a metal, it will be atom. So we completed the first part, we just completed the equation. It is not balanced. The second part is balancing. And to balance the equation, we can only write the number before the element or compound. So when we check, we have 2 chlorine here. How many chlorine are there on the right hand side? How many chlorine on the right hand side? That is 1. So we want to make the same number of chlorine. So if we want to make the same number, we can only write the number before the element or compound. So we write 2 here. So when we write 2, chlorine is balanced. But what about sodium? On the right hand side, we have 2 sodium. On the left hand side, we have 1 sodium. So what we will do to make it balanced, we will put 2. So sodium is also balanced. And it's not necessary that you have to write number, or if you don't need any number here, so it means here we have 1. So 2 sodium atom reacted with 1 chlorine molecule give 2 sodium chloride molecules. Is it clear, this part? So first what we do, we complete the equation, and the second what we do, we balance the equation. So when we are completing the equation, you don't have to bother about the numbers. When you're completing the equation, important thing is writing a correct formulas. Balancing is the second part. So when element react with another element, this will result in a formation of compound. Another example, if we have calcium react with chlorine. So if calcium is reacting with chlorine, this will result in a formation of calcium chloride. Now what we have to do, we have to identify this is element, calcium is element, which is a metal. Chlorine is also an element which is a non-metal, and calcium chloride, a chemical combination of 2 or more atoms, that is a compound. So calcium is a metal. So as calcium is a metal, How it will exist, atom or molecule? How it will exist, atom or a molecule? So calcium will be an atom. And chlorine, because it is a non-metal, so how it will exist? It will exist as a molecule. So first we write the symbol for calcium existing as an atom. We write the symbol for chlorine, which is Cl, but it will exist as a molecule. And then calcium chloride. If it's a compound, we don't have to bother how they exist in element form. When it is a compound, we have to use the valency. So we have to write a formula for a compound which contain calcium and chlorine. So calcium is group 2, which is plus 2, and chlorine is group 7, which is minus 1. So calcium is plus 2 and chlorine is minus 1. So when we cross multiply, this 1 will come with calcium and 2 will come with chlorine. So the formula for calcium chloride will be CaCl2. So formula here will be CaCl2. So when you check this equation, on the left hand side you have 2 chlorine, on the right hand side 2 chlorine. On the left hand side 1 calcium, on the right hand side 1 calcium. So some of the equation are already balanced when you complete them. So this equation you don't have to put any number because it is already balanced. Is it clear, this example? Another example, say aluminium plus chlorine. The reason why I'm using chlorine, so that taking the same example, you have an idea that how the equation might change. So aluminium plus chlorine, that will result in a formation of aluminium chloride. So aluminium plus chlorine give aluminium chloride. When we check the periodic table, because aluminium is a metal element and chlorine is a non-metal element, but aluminium chloride is a compound. So aluminium is a metal, that's why it will be Al, but chlorine is an element and it's a non-metal, so it will be Cl2. And this result in a formation of aluminium chloride. How we write a formula for aluminium chloride? So we have aluminium group 3, which is plus 3, and chlorine group 7 minus 1. So aluminium is plus 3, chlorine is minus 1. The two valencies are not same. So we cross multiply after simplifying. So it will be Al1, 1 we don't write, and Cl3. So the formula of aluminium chloride will be AlCl3. So commonly students make a mistake when they see aluminium plus Cl2, they write AlCl2. That's wrong, because that's not the way to write a formula of a compound. How to write a formula of the compound is by using their valencies. So aluminium is plus 3, chlorine is minus 1. We simplify and cross multiply. So aluminium chloride will be AlCl3. That's we completed the equation. Now the second part is balancing the equation. Now how to balance this equation? On the left hand side we have 2 chlorine, on the right hand side we have 3 chlorine. So where we have a smaller number, that side we add. Like if I put 2 here, so when I put 2, this will make 4 chlorine, but equation is again still not balanced, as on the left hand side now 4 chlorine, on the right hand side you have 3 chlorine. So if I put 2 multiplied by 3, that makes 6 chlorine. So total number of chlorine on the right hand side 6, on the left hand side 4. So if I change this 2 and write 3, so 3 multiplied by 2, now it will make 6. So you can see on the left hand side and on the right hand side we have equal number of chlorine. But what about aluminium? This 2 is multiplied with both aluminium and chlorine. So on the right hand side we have 2 aluminium. On the left hand side we should also have 2 aluminium. So what we do, we put 2. So aluminium is also balanced. So this equation 2Al plus 3Cl2 gives 2AlCl3. Is it clear, this equation? The balancing part as well as completion? Any question or a doubt? Look, how to balance this? Because for balancing, it's not like directly writing the number, it's step by step. So how to balance this part? When you see chlorine, on the left hand side you have 2 chlorine. And on the right hand side you have 3 chlorine. To balance, we can only write the number before the element or before the compound. So when you check, you have 3 chlorine on the right hand side, you have 2 chlorine on the left hand side. So the side where you have less number, there you can put a number. If I put 1, that will remain same because 1 multiplied by 2, it's 2. So if I write 2 here, 2 multiplied by 2, that will make 4. But when I put 2 on the left hand side, equation is still not balanced. Why equation is not balanced? Because on the left hand side you have 4 chlorine, on the right hand side you have 3 chlorine. So we have to put a number here. So if I put 1 is already there, but if I put 2, so 2 multiplied by 3, that makes 6. So now how many chlorine are there? It makes 6 chlorine on the right hand side. So if right hand side 6 chlorine, on the left hand side there should be 6 chlorine as well. 2 we already put. So we have to put another number. After 2 we have 3. So if I put 3 here, 3 multiplied by 2, what it makes? It makes 6. So now this equation is balanced in terms of chlorine. Is it clear till now, this part? Saim, Abdullah Sarfraz? Till this part? Then about aluminium, on the right hand side you can see this 2 aluminium are there because this 2 is with both aluminium and chlorine. On the left hand side you can see only 1 aluminium is there. So you want to make 2 aluminium. So if I put 2 here, that will make 2 aluminium. So this equation is balanced in terms of chlorine and in terms of aluminium. Is it clear, this example? Yes, Saim? Is it clear? So when element react with another element, it will form a compound. Now the second type of equation, this is the second type of equation. The first one is element with element. Now if the element react with compound. So if element is reacting with a compound, what will be the result? The result will be a compound and element. So it's the same thing. When element is mixed with a compound, the result will be one of the compound will form and another element will form. And if this element which is used here is a metal, it will replace first part of compound. I will explain this statement. And if the element which is reacting here is a non-metal, it will replace the second part of compound. Example, we have sodium reacting with lithium chloride. So the first example, a sodium is reacting with lithium chloride. So this is element, sodium is element, lithium chloride is compound. Now what will be the result? So what we have to do, we have to check whether this element is a metal or a non-metal. If element is a metal, what it will do? It will replace the first part of the compound. So if sodium, as we know, sodium is reacting with lithium chloride, so it will replace the first part of a compound. What will be the product form? So it will form sodium chloride plus lithium. The lithium is being knocked out, or lithium is removed by the sodium, or sodium took position of lithium. So when element which is reacting here with a compound, if element is a metal, it will replace the first part of the compound. And if element which is reacting is a non-metal, like example, if I say chlorine is reacting with potassium bromide. So element is reacting with a compound. Element chlorine is reacting with a compound potassium bromide. So what will be the product? How to identify the product? We have to check the element first. This is chlorine is an element and chlorine is a non-metal. So if element is a non-metal, which part of a compound it will replace? It will replace the second part of the compound. So chlorine will take position of bromine, and the bromine is being knocked out. So the result will be potassium chloride plus bromine. Is it clear, this example? The two examples. The first example, the element is a metal which is reacting with a compound, and the second example, element is a non-metal. So if element which is reacting is a metal, it will knock out the first part, or it will replace the first part of the compound. But if element is reacting, if element is a metal, it will replace the first part. If element is a non-metal, it will replace the second part of a compound, and this result in a formation of compound and element. I'll give examples, more examples related to this. So example, we have calcium plus magnesium chloride. calcium plus magnesium chloride. Calcium is an element and magnesium chloride is a compound. When we check the periodic table, you can find calcium in group 2. So if it is group 2, it will be a metal. So calcium is a metal here. So which part of the compound it will replace? The first part or the second part? Calcium is a metal. Which part it will replace? Magnesium or chloride? So it will replace the first part. So calcium will knock out this first part. And what will be the product form? The product form will be, because calcium took position of magnesium, so it will be calcium chloride plus magnesium. Is it clear, this example? Okay. Then the second part is writing a symbolic equation. Writing a symbolic equation is having a same way, writing and completing a symbolic equation. So how we can write a symbolic equation? As we already discussed, if a substance is element, we check whether it's a metal or non-metal. If it's a metal, then it should be an atom. If it's a non-metal, it should be a molecule. For a compound, we write the valencies and complete the equation. Calcium is a metal, so it should be an atom, so Ca. Plus magnesium chloride is a compound. So if it's a compound, if a substance is compound, I have to use a periodic table. Magnesium group 2, so it's plus 2, and chlorine group 7 minus 1. So what will be the formula of magnesium chloride? Cross multiply, so it will be MgCl2. So the formula of magnesium chloride, it will be MgCl2. And then it gives calcium chloride. So again, calcium chloride is a compound. So when a substance is a compound, we have to use the valencies to write a chemical formula. So when we check the periodic table, calcium is plus 2 and chlorine is minus 1. So calcium chloride formula, calcium plus 2, chlorine minus 1. When we cross multiply, calcium chloride will be CaCl2. So calcium chloride will be CaCl2. Plus magnesium is an element. And which element is this? It's a metal. So when substance is a metal, it will be an atom. Is it clear? The first part we completed the equation. Because symbolic equation, first part is to complete and the second part is to balance. So we did the completion part in which we write the symbol, correct symbol for each element or compound. The second part is balancing. So when you start balancing, normally we start with oxygen followed by hydrogen and then other element. But here we don't have oxygen, so we can start with any element. So chlorine, 2 chlorine on the left hand side, 2 chlorine on the right hand side, so chlorine is balanced. 1 magnesium on the left hand side, 1 magnesium on the right hand side, and 1 calcium on the left hand side and 1 calcium on the right hand side. So actually this equation is already balanced when it was completing. So some of the equation, it happened that when we complete them, they are already balanced. Yes, Abdullah, can you use your mic if you have any question or doubt? This part, oxygen and hydrogen, this is the order. Now, to make it easy, this is the order of balancing. Like we start with oxygen, we start to balance oxygen, then we balance hydrogen, and then other element. This is the order of balancing. But because in this
We have to
equation,
revise this.
yeah, this order is important because in this example, there is no oxygen or hydrogen involved, so I can start with any element. But if a substance, if a equation involve oxygen and hydrogen, so I should always try to balance oxygen. That just make it easy to balance.
So what about others, sir? We just have to revise oxygen and hydrogen.
No, oxygen, hydrogen, and what is the meaning of other? Then it's up to you. You can follow any order. For balancing, if a compound, if in equation we find oxygen, so we should first try to balance oxygen, then we should try to balance hydrogen, and then any other element in any sequence we can select. Is it clear?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
So another equation, if I say chlorine is reacting with potassium iodide. Now what will be the product? An element is reacting with a compound. So first thing, what we have to check the nature of the element. Chlorine is a non-metal. So if it's a non-metal, which part of a compound it will displace? First or second? So it will displace the second part, that's good. So it will displace the second part of a compound, and that result, it will be potassium chloride plus iodine. So first we complete the equation, the word equation, and then now the symbolic equation. Now, how to complete a symbolic equation? Chlorine symbol is Cl, but because chlorine is a non-metal and non-metal should be a molecule. Potassium iodide is a compound. So whenever there is a compound, how to write a formula? You have to use a periodic table to write a formula of the compound. So potassium is group 1, so it will be +1, and iodine is group 7, so it is -1. So what will be the formula of potassium iodide? We cross multiply the valencies, so it will be Ki. So here the formula of potassium iodide will be Ki. Then it will give potassium chloride. So again it's a compound. So how to write a formula of a compound? You have to use a periodic table and check potassium group 1, so +1, and chlorine group 7 -1. So +1 and -1, we cross multiply, it will be KCl. So formula for potassium chloride will be K and Cl plus iodine. Iodine symbol is I, but because iodine is an element, and when element is a non-metal, it should be a molecule. So this is how we completed the equation. Is it clear? The completion part to everyone? Abdullah Khan, Yusra, Saim, Afreen, Lamia. Is it clear? How we completed the equation? And the second part is balancing. Now to balance, because normally balancing start with oxygen followed by hydrogen and then any other element. But in this equation there is no oxygen, so you can start balancing with any number, any element. And for balancing, the number you should write before the element or compound. So these blanks you can fill up. You cannot write the number below. So if I see iodine, on the right hand side I have 2 iodine. On the left hand side, I have 1 iodine. So which number I should write here to make balance? What should be the number here to balance iodine? So it should be 2. So when I put 2, so iodine is balanced. Now for chlorine, when I check, on the right hand side we have 1 chlorine. On the left hand side it is Cl2, means 2 chlorine. So which number, because the side where we have less number, there we balance. So how many, what should be the number to balance chlorine here? That's 2 again, good. So we put 2, chlorine is balanced as well. And what about potassium? When we check now, potassium is 2 on the left hand side and it is 2 on the right hand side, so it is already balanced. And the places where we did not write any number for balancing, it means what is there? There is 1. So this equation is balanced, it is completed, and it is balanced as well. Is it clear, this example? So if element react with element, it will form compound. If element react with a compound, it will form a compound and element, and that depends. If element belongs to a metal, then it will replace the first part. If element belongs to a non-metal, it will replace the second part.